I've added this in post editing. I have decided to split this video into two parts because it's quite long overall. In the first part and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the profile itself, as well as the deck. And then the next video, I'll be doing a couple of practice hands, practice games, etc. Enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Spright channel. This is Mr. Juan Carlos La Torre. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name because I am terrible with foreign names, but he is from Peru and he managed to take first place in the SAWCQ 2024 tournament. He managed to beat out a lot of players and ended up playing 10 rounds in the main Swiss. And then in the top cut, he managed to win all 6 games. He managed to win all 6 games for first place. So very impressive. What we're going to do here today is we're going to have a look at his list, and we're going to, I'm going to give some of my opinions on the list and why it may have worked and what might be a bit different from my deck list, which I may or may not disagree with. I want to preface by saying that this is of course a huge accomplishment and big congratulations to him for bringing the Spright name some respect as well that it very much deserves, especially after the frog buffs, I'd say. Alright, so we have the matchups on the side here, on the right hand side, but that he posted himself in the Spright Jewelers group. So we're going to quickly talk about his matchups before we get into the deck list, which I'll look at on DB, and I will comment on that over there. Alright, so looking at his matchups, back to his matchups, we have we're going to look at the matchups first and then the dice roll wins, right? So we'll go from top to bottom. As you guys can see, he's played against a lot of Snake Eyes Cash in this tournament. So Snake Eyes Cash, Spright Mirror, Branded, Snake Eyes Cash, Snake Eyes Infinable, which is an interesting mix. I haven't seen Infinable in a very long time since the Link 2. I have a mind blank right now. You know what I'm talking about, the Warrior one that dumps the equips or like searches a warrior, specials a warrior, I don't remember. Snake Eyes Cash, Dino, like a blind going second Dino, Rika, Tenpai in the top cut, Branded, Snake Eyes Cash, Snake Eyes Cash, Snake Eyes Cash. So a pretty tough match up all over because there are a lot of Snake Eyes Cash and a couple of pure Snake Eyes, and of course we all know that in a 5 dominant format, these decks are quite prevalent and a force to be reckoned with. So a very big congratulations one more time to Mr. La Torre for this accomplishment. Alright, so let's jump back into the dice rolls now. So overall we have, I believe, 10 out of... in the Swiss rounds, the 10 Swiss rounds, he has a 7 win rate, 7 dice roll win rate, I should say that a bit better. And then in top cut, he won exactly half of his dice rolls. So he won 3 out of 6 overall, making for a score of 10 out of 16 dice roll wins. But I guess you can consider it as 11 out of 16 if you want to include the blind going second Dino, because I'm sure they would have gone second as well. Essentially 11 out of 16 games that he won the dice roll for and opted to go first in, which is slightly above average, I'd say. A little bit more on the lucky side, which is obviously favorable if you're running this many powerful going first cards. But he also has a lot of hand traps as well as board breakers to, make it a bit easier to break boards if he's going second as well. So it's well accounted for all around. All right, so breaking down his deck again, he has 9 hand traps in the main deck, being the 3 draw, 3 ash, and 3 imperms. 25 main engine cards, including the Melffy stuff, including the starters, Gamma Burst, whatever. And then he has 6 board breaker cards, being Cyclones, the Droplets, and the Talents. I didn't really include called by under any of the titles there because it will fit in under any of those. So overall, that makes for a total of 42 cards in the main deck. And I think, what we're going to do is we're actually going to break down some of the cards, why they're in there, and potentially some of the reasons why he actually got his victory overall. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room first. Melffy package versus Toad package versus running both. So a lot of people are saying run both, and I think those opinions are strengthened further just by his accomplishment here. I think a big part of his wins, his consistent wins, I should say, against Snake Eyes Cash is that the Melffy package automatically is quite strong against the Kashtira deck, right? And that is simply because having the Melffy of the Forest card on the field with a caddy next to it as well essentially means that if they summon a cash monster, you freeze the monster on their board, they can't use it to attack, and then they have to just go with their other engine cards. So essentially, it's like a natural counter. And then on top of that, you also get an Omni Negate, right? So they summon a monster. If you guys haven't watched this, I have like a bunch of, I have a guide on the Melffy stuff on my channel, so go ahead and check that out, and I'll try and link that in the description if I remember to. But yeah, I think that is a big reason as to why he got his wins. Like a couple of, I wouldn't say free wins, but it becomes a lot easier to essentially play against their decks if half their deck is stopped by that one card. And then on top of that, of course, the Toad being the Omni Negate plus the Herald makes it a lot tougher for the opponent to then further continue the combos because they have that little Kashtira monster frozen on the board. Alright, so let's look at his deck list. So his deck list consists of 3 Ashes, 3 Droll, 1 Caddy, 1 Penny, so the Melffy package, and then we have the Mirror Mage, 2 Anglers, 3 Beavers, 3 Blues, 1 Carrot, 3 Red, 3 Jets, 2 Reds, 3 Swamp Frogs, 1 Cordby, 2 Cosmics, 2 Droplets, Freezing Chains, Gamma Burst, 3 Starters, 2 Talents, 3 Imperms, and a Double Cross. So just off the first looks, it's kind of like a board breaker, approach. There are a couple of board breaker cards, as well as a couple of good, really strong going first cards, such as Double Cross and of course the Melffy cards. And then in the extra deck, we have the Herald of the Arclight, Zeus, Downerd, 2 Gigantics, 1 Melffy of the Forest, Mannequin Cat, Ninja Shadow Mosquito, the Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, Toad, and then we have the Duck, IP, Phoenix, SP, and a Sprint. And then the side deck, we have a bunch of just thrust targets. We have a bunch of going second power spells, as well as a bunch of going first good traps, aside from Evenly, which is of course a good going second power trap. We have Change of Heart, Duster, 2 Lightning Storms, 2 Mind Controls, 1 Raigeki, 2 Thrusts, DDG, we have 2 D Barriers, 2 Evenlies, and a Magic Deflector. And just for the record, because he mentioned it as well, he wanted to switch out nothing in the main deck, but he wanted to switch out the, one of the D Barriers for Symbol Archfiends. I'll look it up now. That is Symbol Archfiends right there. This turn, neither players can special summon monsters with the same card types: Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link. They already control. So basically, like a D barrier for links as well. And then the secondary effect is just like a buff effect, which no one really cares about. But it's mainly just used for the Floodgate effect to mainly stop, I'm assuming, Snake Eyes and their linking shenanigans. Aside from that, the Cordby is a very interesting choice to main deck because, of course, obviously we are able to play through hand traps, but some of them can be quite hurtful, especially Veiler Ash. Droll can be a little bit hurtful if you don't start during the draw phase, or after you blue search Jet and then they stop you, you don't really get to touch Double Cross. So in a sense, it kind of trades 1 for 1, but it can also enable you to summon back your Toad off the Double Cross search. Obviously, if you draw, you can't search the trap anymore. Aside from that, everything else looks pretty standard except for the 2 Cosmics in the main deck and the 2 Reds. Well, the 2 Reds, I've mentioned this in the past as well. It's kind of whatever, right? It's like your choice. If you feel like you want to run an extra copy just in case, go for it. That by all means, like that's perfectly fine. Cosmic Cyclones, I actually kind of like it. I'm not too sure about this format. I think, actually, let me have a think. So I think the top decks, Snake Eyes, Cash, they would typically make an SP, but if you're not hitting SP, you could also just hit Birth or something so that they have less continuation, less rebound during the next turn if they make it that far. Hits Pearly pretty well because you always have targets there. And aside from that, you also hit Tempai, I guess Runic decks as well, Floodgate decks. Juan himself mentioned that the Cosmics are in there for skill drains because a lot of decks are playing skill drain, especially the Snake Eyes decks, right? Being one of the last remaining consistent Floodgate draws, you're able to just Cosmic, get that Floodgate out of here. So quite a strong card against skill drain specifically. Tenpai, their field spell, if you hit it, quite strong as well. Makes everything targetable, which means that you can actually do things during main phase 1 when they start like doing their little combos. And the last thing about the main deck is that they're not running Fenrir. So maybe just because they don't have enough space, but I think Fenrir is still such a great card. I would not underestimate it. I also would not be surprised if it got hit on the next list, maybe down to 1 or maybe to 2 at most. At least down to 2. I think being able to just have that extra free body in case you draw that plus something else, like it just matters so much more. Because you're able to make sprint if you want to, or you can just play Fenrir control with whatever hand traps you drew because you bricked. Looking at the side deck now, I think all the powerful going second cards, I think I'm of the opinion that it's quite good, but at the same time, Thrust needs a monster to activate. Potentially, he mainly counts on the let's say Flamberge Dragon summoning the IP into the main monster zone during your draw phase to trigger. Otherwise, I suppose hand traps as well. If they hand trap you, you're able to set one of your many floodgates to just counter them. Magic Deflector as well, right? Like it acts as a mini floodgate because against specific decks such as Snake Eyes Cash, it turns off, well, he said Birth, and it also turns off the Wanted quick play spell. They activate Wanted, you chain Deflector, and it basically lasts the entire turn and shuts those cards down entirely, so they can't actually like play through as much as they want to. Evenly, I originally ran this in my going second power spell deck as well, but ever since I've kind of wanted to just always OTK them, and so I've looked past Evenly. But maybe it's good right now just because there aren't any Omni Negates, and so Evenly still puts in good work. And after that, if you're able to make a big board using your double negates, whatever, you can, make it really hard for your opponent to crack your board even further. DDG is obviously just for any graveyard reliant deck, including Snake Eyes Cash. Shifter was run in there just for the DDG, but I suppose he's changed that for like just the Thrust plus the DDG. Essentially does the same thing, except you're guaranteed to do it and you won't really hurt yourself because you use it on their turn. Last thing I want to mention is Cosmics can of course be chained with Droplet, so you're not really negging anything. This is about the whole, you activate, I'll give you an example, right? Let's say you activate Talent to take or to draw or whatever. You chain Starter to summon, you chain Cosmic to back row remove, and then you Droplet all 3 of them and you're basically negging for 0 to negate 3 things. Quite insane. So you can definitely see where the value comes from with Droplet. And of course, sending Angler feels really nice. Sending Mirror Mage doesn't feel bad either. Sending dead hand traps, let's say draw, maybe you don't need it for the matchup, that also feels fine as well. So quite a solid list overall. And then the extra deck. So Phoenix, I'm assuming, is also there just for random floodgates potentially. I'm kind of surprised. I think Typhon isn't that good anymore because against cards such as like Baron, you would obviously summon it and just bounce the Baron back. But now because Baron doesn't exist, it's not as necessary anymore. I think that's perfectly fine to take out. And in fact, I have actually taken it out of my list currently as well. I know my last deck profile, I included it in. A bit different now. Aside from that, Dark as well. Dark, I don't really see the appeal behind Dark because I don't think the format is super Dark reliant. Obviously, Snake Eyes Cash has the Dear Bellstar, which they don't always go to. The rest of, maybe Link Rebo as well. But Link Rebo can be chained on just any level 1, and so it's a bit awkward if you go through to Dark and they see you summon Dark and they check the graveyard, it's like Link Rebo, okay, or just tribute a level 1, now you don't have your Dark anymore. But I can see the appeal behind being able to go to Dark straight into Sprint with that free ranked link to body, or you can go, oh well, this has to be made with a Dark. Give me a second. Okay, looking through our list, I don't see any other Darks, which means you'll have a 2 already. So maybe it's just for link climbing into SP. Not entirely sure about this one, because if there were level 2 Darks in the meta, that would make a lot of sense, like Merly or mirror matches for Spright. So I think this one can be something else. I'm not too sure how often it came up for him. either, but I think everything else looks pretty solid in the list. Onibimaru allows him to OTK as well with the Gamma Burst for game, because you get to banish whatever monster, use Gigantic Jet and Onibimaru to swing directly. Okay, so I figured that I might actually just show everything that I'm talking about in DB first before we jump into the practice hands and the practice games, just to see what the deck feels like. And of course, this is just a typical end board with the Spright and the frog stuff. So we obviously have Toad and a Sprint with this in the spell and trap zone, and then we have 2 beavers that we summoned off of an angler, which I haven't milled just yet. Let me just reset this real quick. There we go. Okay, and so the question is, do we overlay here for the Melffy of the Forest, which can then detach, use its effect to search for Caddy, or do we make an SP and just end up banishing 2 things? Well, I think that right now, let's say hypothetically, if they summon Fenrir, obviously it's going to be quite strong to use the Melffy stuff still, but it's heavily reliant on them playing the Kashtira stuff. I think in general against most decks, it'll be better to run the IP still. I still agree that it's the correct play. You don't have to worry about having an Xyz because Toad will be able to bounce. You'll be able to detach off Toad to bounce something for Sprint. So you'll always have an Xyz on board with material. Sometimes you also end up with a Gigantic that you don't have to use to summon Sprint because you have extra bodies, maybe like a blue and a jet. Okay, let's play this out. So hypothetically, they summon Fenrir because they're playing Snake Eyes Cash or some kind of like Cash variant. You trigger the Caddy and you search with Caddy, which will just be searching Penny, unless you already have Penny, in which case you search Beaver if you haven't already gone through all 3. And then on res, they have player priority because they special summon, and so Fenrir can be channeling 1 to target whatever, and then Melffy of the Forest will be channeling 2 to target the Fenrir to negate it, and to stop it from attacking. And this works out really well because it essentially shuts off their entire Kashtira engine if this is all they have. Same thing goes for if they have Birth. Unless they have Birth, they can't really, or Theosis, they can't really extend further. But you also have Toad Negate, you also have Sprint to bounce back whatever they summon. Hypothetically, if they did have, let's say, a Theosis, the Theosis this, summon a Unicorn, you go Sprint effect to detach off Toad and then bounce it back. And then they essentially only have the other side, the not Fire King, Snake Eyes engine to deal with the rest of your board. You also have a second Toad effect to negate again with the help of Double Cross, which you hopefully searched off Jet, which I'm not running in this deck. But yeah, on resolution of them summoning Fenrir, you're negating their effect so they can't use it, and then you declare Penny in hand. Obviously, you guys know this, special summon it, and then Synchro into Herald. And of course, this is your second target for Double Cross, but usually it'll be a Toad, especially because you get a lot of resources back with Toad as well, adding waters back. The alternative is you go for IP into SP. And again, the reason why I think it's so good to go for IP over the Melffy stuff is because you will typically go standby phase, Toad effect, unless you know for a fact that they're playing Super Poly. No reason not to summon the last one, and then you could also just dump using its effect to deck thin a little bit. And then you have that free body with the IP and the Swap Frog, in which case, whatever they summon out, whatever they do, let's say hypothetically they summon Dia Bellstar, right? So they summon Dia Bellstar, they pitch something, the special summoner uses effect to search. We don't even have to negate it, right? They need something on field to send for original Sinful Spoils, and so we can just go IP. We'll link these two, make SP, banish the Dia Bellstar so they don't have a body anymore to send for original Sinful Spoils. I like doing that over banishing the spell just because they have to use another resource to get a body on board, and then they can send it, in which case it's quite nice, right? Everything else can also just be Little Knight fodder. Let's say they summon Ash, you go, they use the effect, you go SP to banish both bodies off the field, and then they add Poplar, they Poplar in hand, maybe you just Toad it or something, right? Oh no, you wouldn't Toad it because they can still, bring it back from the grave, or you can set it, actually. So it's fine. Yeah, you can just Toad it. So I think this works out a lot better because in general, SP just does so much more. It's 2 banishes over the Melffy's. Well, it's however you see it, right? This is one finished chain plus an omni-negate and a little macro, but it's not entirely necessary versus the banish here. Also, you run less cards in the extra deck because you're already running SP and IP before. It doesn't really take up slots, and so you're able to slide in some tech options like, again, Cerberus for maybe Baguska or Phoenix for whatever spell trap removal you want. It also takes 2 less cards in the main deck, which means you can put in non-engine. Going second, if you draw into the Melffy stuff, it just feels so bad. You can put in whatever else you want. It'll essentially be the same, and it doesn't cost any more, right? Because you're essentially using the same number of beavers to make the same end board, and you're not really negging because Hode gives you that free body as well. That is the debate. Yeah. So I think right now, just because of the Snake Eyes Cash stuff, the Melffy cards might have a little bit more value than usual, but as the format changes, if the ban list hits and people get off this Cash Tier engine, I think the Melffy stuff would definitely lose a lot of value, in which case the IPSP stuff would just naturally be a lot more useful. That is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. We are going to jump straight into the matches and the practice hands in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Laters.